Hello, Brave family. My name is Lauren Hope, your Brave host for the remainder of 2021. Welcome to the 2021 October episode. We're going to talk about depression this month because October is Depression Awareness Month. Brave TV was created during the COVID-19 pandemic to bring stories of hope and awareness to our Brave family. Each month, we cover a different topic featuring Brave alumni. This month, as I discussed, we're going to talk about Depression Awareness Month. And I am talking to fellow Brave alumni, Emily Long, and we're going to discuss depression. I'll be bringing her in shortly. According to the Hope for Depression Research Foundation, depression affects 19 million people in the United States each year. It's the leading cause of disability for people 15 to 44 and a factor in death by suicide. Here at Brave TV, we're sharing stories of people with lived experience of mental illness to show others they are not alone and to lessen stigma. All right, I'm going to bring our lovely guest in.
All right.
Hello, there she is. All right, we're on gallery view. How are you doing, Emily? Welcome to the October episode of Brave TV. How are you doing? Emily, tell us a little bit about your Brave experience and why you wanted to share living with depression with This Is My Brave, the show.
All right. So I was originally I auditioned in Napa in 2019 for their live performance, and I auditioned with poetry. And originally, when I saw the broadcast, the posting about a show, I was like, "That's cool." I just wrote a poem about being in 1 year of recovery, and I actually skipped my first audition because I was so scared. And when I finally went back and went in, the environment was just so supportive. I couldn't not do it.
Now, the nervousness, did that come because you had never shared about your experiences like that at all, or let alone in public?
My experience was very in the public. I feel like I took what was it, 6 to 8 weeks out of school. So a lot of people knew I was struggling, and it's not something that I hadn't talked about. It was just new and exciting, and I was afraid of my story not being big enough, which there is no not big enough in mental health. All of it is painful, so it's all big enough.
I totally understand that, because This Is My Brave, the show is kind of a big thing. And so I can understand you wanting to have a show that or a piece that fits that. And I'll admit to you that I've struggled with anxiety and depression since my teens. And Emily, you're in high school,
Yeah.
your senior year, right?
Yep.
So after you shared with This Is My Brave, what was that like for you? What did it feel like sharing that in front of an audience of strangers?
It was really empowering to share my story, and it was really empowering to listen to all the other young adults, teenagers in the room. I was actually one of the youngest people on stage, so that was pretty cool. I think the most empowering moment I remember is after the show when you went out into the lobby and everyone's like, "Oh my God, that made such an impact on me." And I'm like, wow, my words have meaning. I just felt really powerful. And since then I have felt very secure in myself, in my being, just it gave me another sense of meaning in life. Even though it's such a small moment, it's so impactful even in my everyday life.
There is something powerful about being able to speak your truth and then have that truth validated and affirmed by others. And I can definitely testify to that too. So when were you initially diagnosed with depression, and what have been some of the challenges that you've had in depressive episodes?
I was diagnosed September of 2018. It was that's my official diagnosis. I was hospitalized. I was an inpatient for 5-6 days.
Mhm.
So that's when I got the official worded diagnosis. What was the second question?
What have been some challenges of living with depression?
Um, the challenge for me is really understanding that I've been through it and I can get through it again because it seems pretty cyclical for me. Like
Mhm.
around the fall, even though fall's my favorite season, like I get a little bit more depressed and I struggle to like get out of bed every morning and make myself food and shower and all these things. So it's really understanding for me understanding like how I keep getting myself out of it because
Mhm.
like I keep thinking I'm like, oh, I'm better. I'm not going to have to deal with it again. But for me, there really is no better.
No, and you know what's so interesting? You talked about cyclical. This is the time of year where I start to dip also. And I think I've just now kind of assessed that. I've been talking to my therapist about it. And for me, you're right. Like, there is also, like you, this will be something that I live with, and I'm still learning continuously on how to manage it. I just wanted to tell folks kind of a broad definition of depression for folks who might not know. This is from the Mayo Clinic. Like a lot of mental illnesses, it can be experienced in a lot of different ways. It's generally described as prolonged feelings of sadness, hopelessness. It can lead to changes in your behavior, changes in your sleep, sleeping too much or too little, changes in your appetite, reduced energy, a loss of pleasure in activities you used to enjoy, and difficulty concentrating. Generally, if those symptoms persist for 2 to 3 weeks or more, they say that you should, kind of reach out for some additional support. How have you learned to manage your depression, and what does recovery look like to you?
So the first step of my recovery was definitely managing my eating disorder because uh, that on top of my depression was definitely worsening my symptoms and like the symptoms of not being able to go to bed, like no motivation, definitely had to do with not sustaining my body. So that was really important. And then from there on, like creative outlets have been really helpful, like poetry, just painting. It doesn't even have to be good, just like creating something is like really soothing. But I think the most uh I say impactful a lot, that's weird. The most
It's a
impactful
strong word. It's a good word.
it is um the most impactful thing is sports. So swimming and water polo for me, um it might just be the endorphins, but I also think like being in an environment around people who like share such an intense passion for the same thing and being on a team is, I don't know, that is just game changing. Like if I'm really in like a bad state, I'm like, okay, I need to go to the pool and we're good.
I think that's so good that you found an outlet. Sometimes for me, it's writing, sometimes it's running, but I do think it's important that, people with this particular challenge find something that gets them going and gets them moving.
Yeah.
How would you say depression has impacted your life?
Um Depression's impacted my life in a bunch of ways, sadly. Um, it's changed how I see myself, how I see others, but I think the hardest thing that my depression has like messed with is school. As I
Mhm.
said, like I had to take some weeks off of school when I was hospitalized freshman year, and that itself kind of brought down my GPA, which as I'm a high school senior and now applying to colleges, I'm like, oh, like that's doesn't look so hot. But even because my depression seems to be cyclical, and when it comes around and when it decides to like mess with my head,
Yeah.
like I have these little bouts of I have no room left to do schoolwork. I am just caring for myself. Like even if I can go to school every day, like coming home and then doing more work, it just not ideal.
Yeah. For me, I started experiencing depression when I was 17, but then it really impacted me in my 20s and lack of focus and things like that. In high school, I didn't experience my first hospitalization until I was in my late 20s. What was that like coming back to high school after something like that? Was that something you felt like you could share with your friends or that you kept secret? Were they supportive?
Um, there was definitely like a main group of people that knew what I was going through. Um, so they were like gentle when I came back, but I was in like an outpatient program, so I was with other teenagers. So I
Okay.
wasn't like I was completely like removed. Um, but it was definitely a little bit weird because I felt like I was being babied. Like people were
Hmm.
definitely very careful. They're walking on eggshells, and it's like, oh my god, guys, I just did all this work, so you don't have to walk on eggshells.
Right,
Like
right.
I'm still me, and that.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go
No,
ahead.
um, that's something that I wish didn't happen. Like that, I'm still here. Like this doesn't change who I am.
Yeah. What I find really endearing is that your friends were supportive. When I was in high school, I graduated in 2002. Old. I'm kidding.
Oh,
um, and there just weren't a lot of spaces where people were talking about mental health or living with depression and anxiety. And I didn't feel like I could share that with anybody. And no one else was talking about it. So I was like, I must be like this alien that's the only person dealing with it when we know that that's not true. So I love to hear that your friends were supportive, even if they were. And I think that even now, like sometimes my friends, when they know I'm in an episode, give me that same type of thing.
yeah.
I get that. Um, what do you think that people don't understand about depression?
Um, I don't think a lot of people understand that depression is more than just the feeling. Like that feeling overflows into every point of your life. I use a lot of metaphors, so here's a
I dig
metaphor.
it.
Um, your life is a pot, like a boiling pot of potatoes. You can't put too many potatoes or the water's going to spill out. So, depression is adding more potatoes into your pot. So, you're overflowing. There's only so
Mhm.
much. And so, like, as I said, like getting out of bed, doing your laundry, brushing your teeth, showering just become extraordinary tasks that just seem so impossible. Like because depression isn't just feeling sad, it's like there's so many different chemical changes and so many changes in your physical being that I wish people understood it's more than just being sad.
That is, I so agree, and I also, for me, also, I wish that people understood that I can't just snap myself out of it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I
Yeah.
I feel great that I can talk to my friends about it, but that there are some of them are like, "What's wrong with you? Like, how bad do you want to get out of this situation?" I'm like, "Really bad." Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't. It takes a little bit more than that, especially if I've been in an episode for a while. So I totally understand that. And I
Yeah.
don't think people understand how debilitating that it could be. Like in my deep episodes, like just doing anything feels excruciating. But what does excite me is that there are more conversations than ever happening about mental health. So the education is coming.
Yeah.
I, I don't know if you've experienced this, but like I was talking about when I was a teenager, I definitely dealt with a lot of shame of having depression. Did you experience that at all? And if you did, how did you come to a place of peace about it?
I definitely was and still am a little bit shameful of depression and mental illness, my mental illness just in general, um, because I feel like it weighs down on me, but I feel like it also weighs down on people around me. When
Hmm.
I'm in episodes, people, I just like I feel like I'm like pushing people down to keep myself above water, and that's not what I'm trying to do. So I'm definitely a little bit have been shameful. Oh my god. But uh I've had conversations with people who I definitely feel like I do this the most to, like with my mother. I'm like, I'm sorry that I'm in this state where I need to rely on you like I would as a child. It's almost like depression is like a child version of yourself.
I
And
see that.
um like she's told me like you're depressed. You have a mental illness. You have no control. And that's really reassuring for me, knowing that, like, the reminder that I didn't choose to do this. I didn't choose to not be able to get out of bed, not be able to do my own hair. Like,
Yeah.
it's that's really reassuring that people that the people around me understand that I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm not hurting them on purpose.
I love hearing that you have like such supportive friends and family members. Um, so it sounds like if you are struggling, it seems like you kind of gotten to a point where you can tell the people around you that you're struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would suggest this to anyone who's struggling with like a mental health challenge, that have a few trusted people that you can say, hey, when I'm depressed or when I'm like experiencing my mental illness, it looks like this. And the best way you can help me is this. And so I have a couple of people that I feel safe enough to have those conversations with. And so they'll be like, hey, Lauren, um, I've noticed this. How can I assist you? That kind of thing. What advice would you give to anyone, particularly young folks, who might be struggling with depression right now and watching this?
I would tell my peers and just everybody in general who are struggling that it does get better and it does take time, but it is so worth the effort. Like, it's really weird to say, but being hospitalized has definitely been a very impactful. There we go.
Yeah.
Impactful time in my life. And like, it's changed like how I see things and how I work. Even though it's not something you want to do, it's
Right.
really helpful.
Like Emily mentioned that not every resource works for every person, which I totally agree. Recovery looks different to everybody. For me, I do therapy and med management, and that works. But then, I know some people who go a totally different route. And now I'm going to be pursuing like how your diet affects depression. I'm looking to see a dietitian or a nutritionist and
Same.
try to take a more holistic approach to it. So, well, I do want to leave folks with some resources. As you mentioned, Emily, recovery is not one size fits all, but I've learned a lot about living with depression through the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They have a peer class that's for free that teaches you everything, like a full scope of like what it's like to live with a mental illness and the support that's out there. Also, if you're looking for therapy but you're scared to actually walk into a therapy office, there are now a ton of online therapists with licensed clinical social workers. One of the most popular ones is BetterHelp. And then if you appreciate like groups, Psychology Today is an amazing resource where you can find groups in your area. Well, I can't thank you enough, Emily, from taking time from balancing things in your senior year to talk to us about your experience. I so appreciate you. And of course, Brave TV family, This Is My Brave family. You can learn more about This Is My Brave at thisismybrave.org. See you next time.